We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity for Business Owners. And today we're going to be talking about the topic of delegation. With Voices of Integrity, they do many different podcasts and many different topics. And this, where they put them, this one could also go to Voices of Integrity for moms, for children. So it could be in all of those. And so a mom actually asked the question. And so when we talk about delegation, we have a number of different pieces. And so we have the person delegating. And so since Ginger Ann asked the question, we have, and she went ahead and said that she was not a good delegator. That's interesting. We'll come back to that in just a moment. So when you're delegating, you have to be self-aware.
Okay.
Wow. Okay, thank you, Elaine, for rescuing the team. So you have to be self-aware. What does that mean?
Aware of what's going on around you?
Well, that's situational awareness. Self-aware is what?
What's going on inside of you?
What's going on inside of you? Good. So as a analytic driver, I have to be aware of my strengths and weaknesses, what I like, what I don't, turns me on, turns me off. I need to understand my feelings, anger, frustration, joy, sadness. I need to have a self-awareness of myself. Why is this so important in delegation?
I wonder if it's one of the reasons why it's important is you need to know why you are delegating, what's the point of it. You need to understand what your plan of how you're trying to delegate it, and when it's not going well, why you're responding the way you are responding.
Anyone have any questions on this? If you're thinking, I really wasn't looking at going that deep, I just wanted you to come up with a Disney fairy tale response. Sorry, only 59 years old. Maybe after February 6th, not to mention that's my birthday that, you all want to celebrate. I'm just saying that delegation is complicated. It's super, super complicated. And if you're looking for a quick fix, an easy solution, something that always works every time with everyone, well, now we know what the problem is. This is the golf pro principle. So the golf pro principle is Tom Kuntz. I'll never forget the first time he told me that. He said he buys everything golf wise. He's a golfer, but he's not very good, he said. So one day he went ahead and hired a golf pro and to coach him. So they went out to the driving range, they shook hands, exchanged pleasantries, and then the golf pro said, Tom, give me the club that never works. Tom's like, what do you mean? He's like, the club that you try to hit and it goes left or right, it never goes straight. Tom laughs and says, well, that could be any of the clubs in the bag. And the guy says, give me the one that's the worst. And so Tom pulls out, one of his clubs, and the golf pro, drops the ball, lines it up, whacks that thing right down the center of the driving range. It goes a mile. The golf pro looks at the golf club and then looks at Tom, and he says to Tom, good news, Tom, the problem is not the clubs. So what does
I love
this
that
mean? Story. Right. What does this mean about delegation? If you're looking for a simple solution, something that always works every time, it's you that's the problem. Now, again, this year I'm not connecting any dots. This is not a dot. It's just a straight line. It's just a straight line. If you're looking for something simple and easy there's not anything out there. That's delusional thinking. So you have to be aware. For example, me, I'm a driver, analytic driver. Getting tasks done is very simple. I could also share the two concubine story, but I don't know if I will. But I might if somebody asks me before the end of the podcast. It's a great story. Men love it. I'm not sure if women do, but men love it. Anyways, and so I need to, when I'm looking at this, I need to understand, who am I delegating to? Ken brings up a good point. What's the purpose? Why am I delegating? Am I delegating because I'm lazy? If you have enough hard power is authority, that you have authority. If you're a dad or a mom, you have hard power over your children. But
For a time.
for a time, that's for, and it's a very short period of time. Melissa was on, she's like, that time went away a long time ago. Then we have to talk about leverage. This is offensive to Ken, but as a mom, I can teach you all how to use leverage. And so your kids are born with leverage. They just know. This is why babies scream, because they're born with leverage. They know if they scream, they get what they want. You might be thinking, oh, I'm connecting the dots. I'm glad you're connecting the dots rather than me connecting the dots. And you might say, so my spouse, when they're screaming, I think I might understand why. I'm connecting some dots. That's good that you do. Anyways, so if you're using hard power, like if you're the boss, if you're the client, if you're the owner of the company and you use hard power, typically hard power, you don't want to use it any more than you have to. Soft power, soft leadership power is going to be more effective. And so anyone can interrupt at any time as well. So when I go ahead and delegate somebody that's an amiable or an expressive, I understand that the way their brains are wired is they just struggle with tasks. This is not brain surgery or rocket science to me. Get the, freaking task done. Like, just get it done. But that's not how their brain is wired. They're checking out this and this and this, and there'll be a short video somewhere around the podcast here about procrastination. And everybody's laughing in the audience when this guy's talking about procrastinators. I'm not laughing. I'm like, oh, that explains all the people around me. So an expressive or wavy line, they get distracted and they're doing this and this and this and this. Understanding the personalities is very, very important. Understanding ourselves is very, very important. Often not delegating to people is the lazy thing. It's the prudent thing often, but it's the lazy thing. What's strange about children and about employees and about human beings is they want to do things when they can't and don't want to do things when they can. It's the strangest phenomena in the world. Like, your children want to do the dishes when they can't do the dishes. As soon as they learn how to do the dishes, they don't want to do the dishes. It's the strangest phenomena, because we tend to like to do things that are a challenge. So understanding pain and pleasure for whoever we're delegating it to. So what creates pain for one personality creates pleasure for another personality. So if you're a mom and you discipline an analytic child and send them to their room to play by themselves, that is not discipline to them. That is rewarding them for whatever behavior they're doing. If you do that same thing to the expressive, that is punishment. We're driven, based on psychologists, they say we're driven by two things: avoiding pain and gaining pleasure. And we will do, they say, more to avoid pain than to gain pleasure. This is why discipline is so powerful. But how we discipline and what forms of discipline we use for our children or people around us is very, very important. So you might think getting angry or upset at a child, might be punishment. No, it's punishment for you as an amiable. But for a driver or an expressive, not so much. It will go ahead and actually reward their behavior. the founder of Brown Center for Autism, for autistic children out of Nashville, Tennessee. She said that in behavioral science, that if you reinforce the behavior or you do the same, you respond in the same way to the individual who's doing an improper behavior 3 times or more, you become part of the problem. What does this mean? It means we have to change up our approach. So when Ginger Ann says it's her responsibility, this is not necessarily bad. What she's doing is she's taking personal ownership. The challenge is, it's true that she might be a bad delegator. So Tom and I went ahead and had argument back and forth. Tom Kuntz and I had argument back and forth where he would say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. My philosophy is very different than that. I mean, who made up that rule? The teachers did, as an excuse for why they're terrible teachers. I would say when the teacher's ready, the student will appear. What does that mean? Well, it means that the better that, because I've observed, I don't think people are good students, but then when they get somebody else, they can learn. So it's not them, it's me. The truth is that you're only as strong as the teacher and the student. Whoever is the weakest is going to probably prevail, which is not good for anyone. So people looking at, is Ginger Ann the problem in delegation? It might be. So the people around her might say, her husband or her children might say, you're the problem. And they're probably right. But they're not right in the right ways. Like Ginger Ann is going to be an amiable analytic. And when she needs to, she can go driver, but she doesn't like going driver. But she can if she needs to. So her problem might be, they're right. The people we're leading and delegating to, think we're the problem. And they're right, but not in the right way, not in the ways that they think. And so, they will think like my son, Ben, he asked me when we were on vacation in Tennessee a week or so ago, he asked me, he says, Dad, do you think you were too hard on the kids and mom? I said, no, I think I was too soft. I think he was surprised by that. And so, I think leverage is the key, Ginger Ann. Even though Ken does not like leverage, he uses it immensely. He just doesn't know about it. To me, this is probably a dangerous thing. When people are using leverage and they don't know they're using leverage, it's like having a gun and not even knowing how to use it, to me. So Ginger Ann, you have tremendous leverage as a wife and as a mother, as a sister, as a daughter. So learning how to use your leverage properly to get other people to do the things that they should do. Does this make sense, Ginger Ann?
Yes, but how do you know what things they should do versus things that I guess you should do?
Right, that's a good question. Okay, I've got my answer. Others are not as quick as I am, Ginger Ann. What this reveals is they have not thought through this as much as I have thought through this, probably. I have thought through this a lot. Like, it's interesting when Lily, when she was like 1 year old, and I saw her mother and her grandmother getting frustrated with her for having an attitude. And I'm like, this is strange. She's like 9 months old. And her mother and grandmother were getting frustrated with her. I'm like, you two are not the epitome of happiness. You have attitudes. You expect more than from a 9 months old than you do yourselves. Like, I thought it was sweet retribution. I'm like, this is kind of cool to see a little bit of an attitude. When she was 3 years old and she became Poosty, that's sassy and some other things. It's like, that's interesting. I wonder where she learned that from. And so, I've given you guys all some more time to think about this. So what suggestions would you have for Ginger Ann? She's struggling with what should she do versus what should she delegate to other people to do?
Well, I guess if she knows what people are capable of doing, that would be one direction that she can look at it as
So just
to
a
if
second, that's brilliant. Somebody hopefully is taking notes. Do they have the capability to do what we're asking them to do? So
What if
which,
they have the capability? I know they have the capability, but they purposely do it wrong, so they don't think that like other people think they have
this is
capability.
a different, so the first thing is we're going from the, do they have the capability of doing something? This is where me as a driver, it's like, I mean, McKay is 3. Sure, she has the capability of driving a car. She's half Amish. Like, she's fine driving. It's fine. She's totally capable. So sometimes, so it's valid. And so do they have the capability of doing it? That's the first question. Okay. Elaine, what would be the next question?
um if if they have the capability or don't, the next one would be um I guess, do they understand fully what was asked of them?
Okay. So they have the capability. Do they understand? Do they understand, the what's being asked of them? Does anybody know what Ginger Ann is saying? Thinking.
What do you do when they get they give you the impression they don't, or they ask all kinds of questions, they play dumb?
Right. That's what she's
What?
thinking.
What? What?
Like that's what she's thinking right now. And so so that's really good what Elaine. So again, hopefully somebody's taking notes on this and putting this somewhere where somebody can go through and do a checklist. Do they have the knowledge to do it? 2 is, do they have the understanding? So first is knowledge and then understanding. Okay, good. Elaine, what's the next?
Um, not sure.
So I think the next is,
How
do
bad do
they,
you want them to do it?
okay.
How
I'm not,
important is this?
I'm not saying, I'm not like, I think one thing is, I think what Ken's coming at from a dad's perspective, and that is, are you willing to do battle to win? Because you always have to win. You can't lose once with a child. You just can't. Because if you do, they'll always remember the one time they got away with it. And as soon as they have that one experience that they got away with something, it becomes like an addiction. They're like, I remember when mom said I had to do it, but you cannot give children or adults the room to not follow through. So one is, do they have the knowledge, the experience to do it? 2 is, do they have what was the word? To test to see if you guys are writing it down.
Do they understand?
And fully what is being asked of
Do
them?
they understand fully what's being asked? The next thing after that is, do they understand how this will benefit them or harm them if they don't follow through? I'm not saying that children or some husbands and wives or some employees or some partners or some people, I'm not saying that they will wear you down. I'm not saying that.
I'm saying that. I will say that.
Okay.
I
So,
will say that.
so, so, so do they have an understanding of the benefit to them and or the cost to them? Sometimes I will go ahead and refer to my children, or my wife or my siblings or other people around me as terrorists. There's one particular family member that does not like me referring to my kids or family or friends as terrorists. I'm not going to name that person. I'm just saying I know that this is offensive to them. But if they were to talk to me about that and say, like, let's have a conversation. What is a terrorist? And just list out everything that's a terrorist. And then list out what I feel. And again, my feelings are important. List out what I feel my children or siblings or others around me are. And you would have a very close match between the two. And so it's unfortunately, it seems like it's a war. And so if you don't win the war, that's why you're in leadership. If you have the ability to delegate, now I am so proficient at delegation, even when I don't have hard power, I just have soft power. I know how to use soft power to get people to do things for me without any authority. So being strong in soft power is important, but women have a hard time using that because then they feel like bad moms or bad wives or bad women or bad people. So women have this heightened sense of guilt, and men take advantage of that. Children take advantage of that. Other people take advantage of that. And so helping people to understand the benefit to this. So those
That
are
seems like
three
a very
things.
positive perspective of women.
So Ken does not see the play that's going on here. It's okay because he's not referred to as a woman whisperer, and we now know why. We'll come back to that in a little later. Okay, so we only have a few more minutes here in this podcast. So now, that's, I would say those are three good solid, not that they couldn't be improved. Those are three good solid things that you look at, self-awareness and then the three, okay? Then what if it doesn't work? That's what Ken was referring to as it relates to, know your battles. Like with my kids, I had a rule from the very beginning. Never tell my kids something to do or not do unless I have the energy. So I always look at, do I have the energy to do this battle? And then what's really at stake here? And so the harder thing as a parent and as an employer, as a leader, is to force people to do things that they don't want to do, don't see the value of doing, don't have the discipline to do, whatever. It's much harder to do that in the short term. But in the long term, your children are going to grow up to be narcissistic, self-centered, self-absorbed, just a mess if you don't do that. Employees, you're going to replace them, and they're going to go to somebody else and they're going to do the same thing and they're going to be replaced there. And so I don't think that this really answered Ginger Ann's question. Would that be fair, Ginger Ann?
Yes, but I don't know if it's easily answered either. So
It is easily answered. It's very easily answered. Does anybody have an easy answer for Ginger Ann's question?
Not sure because I battle with my own.
Yepper. So here is the easy answer. Hand it over to Mark. See, my experience is that the driver likes to do tasks. They have goals. They seem to be inherently born, where they understand that you have goals and you have to work for those goals. It seems to me. The driver,
Or you could use, hey, if I have to tell you again, I'm handing this over to Grandpa.
right. Or Mark, with Elaine's situation. So why am I so effective? Because I understand leverage. I mean, I really understood leverage, where it's the magical arts of positive motivation and manipulation. Most people think of manipulation as bad, but you can manipulate people to do good things. Or, motivation is good, but you can motivate people to do bad things. So are they really that different? And so the thing that these three personalities seem to have is they all care a lot, and I mean a lot, about social. I mean a lot. The expressive wants to look good in front of people. Man, they hate when they look bad. When they're shamed in front of people, oh, do they hate that? Man, they hate that. You do that in front of people, and that's a big motivation. The amiable loves to look kind and generous and loving, but are they? Are they really? They hate when they look bad in front of people. Hate it. The analytic loves to look smart in front of people. And so they just do. And so when you reveal the truth about these three people publicly, like, you could name names, Ginger Ann, but you probably wouldn't. But if you did, that would provide leverage, because they want to look good in front of other people. Some might even go ahead and talk about God in front of people. Like, I can't believe you don't know God. Can't believe you don't believe in God. So my question to that individual would be, what do you think's worth, not believing in God, or saying you believe in God and then not doing the things like respecting your mother? Like, so everything it's like exposure. When you expose, the truth will set you free. In these three personalities here, they're enslaved. And so if you're willing to go ahead and expose people specifically by name, they will go ahead and they will start to respond. Does this make sense, Ginger Ann?
Yeah.
Right? As a mom, as a wife, you don't want to do that. I get it. I understand. I understand the heart of a woman. She doesn't want to expose her husband for being who he really is, or her children for being who they really are. I get it. I understand the heart of a woman. I do. Questions? Anyone?
That's interesting.
Not me.
I had I had a meeting with my wife and a mediator.
Well, what we'll do is we'll take that for the second. We'll do that for the second podcast, because that one's going to be really fun. This one here in delegation, there's a lot more to it. But when you go ahead and help, when you understand, a lot of times, I mean, applying the mirror principle and looking at it, we can often take on too much responsibility ourselves. And it can lead to, other people around us, other people around us are going to be, entitled. They're going to be self-righteous. They're going to be a victim. They just are. Unless we can help teach them thankfulness. I mean, there were times with my kids where they weren't thankful to their mother for all that she did. And they weren't thankful for their father for all he did. So what we did is I'd give them a warning or two, and then I'd say, guess what, kids, you're going to work dad's schedule. They were never so happy to see me come home, and never so frustrated to say, yes, it's been a 15-hour day and I'm not done yet, and neither are you. And so, and then self-righteousness, the humility to call out the hypocrisy that people have, and then personally taking ownership of this. And so a lot of it, Ginger Ann, is it's like crabs in a bucket. So all these crabs come together and they gang up on the strongest one. It's just the law of nature. So what you do is you just expand it. You just expand the reach beyond the family. You expand the reach beyond whatever it is, and you expose the truth for what it is, and people will go ahead and they will move, but it's painful. It's hard to do. So if you have any questions on anything we did today, definitely if you're interested in further conversations on this, we covered just the tip of the iceberg. Join the Life GPS mobile app, and you will be assigned an art mentor. And that will connect you into the Voices of Integrity for Business Owners podcast. If you have any other questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.